Chairs No Waiting, episode number 113. The dingo dog is indigenous to Australia. Two Chairs No Waiting is brought to you each week by Weaver's Department Store at weaversdepartmentstore.com. Drop by Weaver's to pick up some of your great Mayberry things. You can get there at weaversdepartmentstore.com. Two Chairs No Waiting is also brought to you by donations from listeners like you. Thank you for your support. Tonight's executive producer is Ray Haydorn. So Ray, thank you for your support. We couldn't do it without you. Hello, everybody. I'm Alan Newsom, your host for Two Chairs No Waiting, and it's great to have you with me again this evening or today, whatever time you're listening to this. Tonight's episode, as we already said, is going to be called The Dingo Dog is Indigenous to Australia. So we're going to just go ahead and play a little clip about that. So let's just have some fun and listen to this.
How you doing, boy?
Oh, hello, Andy. Sit down. I'm just reading an interesting article here.
Yeah, what about?
Well, it was about, where was that again? Now, wait a minute. I read so much, you know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Only way to keep informed?
Mm-hmm.
It was about, it's not very important anyway. Anything wrong, Andy?
Oh, not really, Floyd. It's just that Aunt Bee's decided she's going to take up driving a car.
She has? Oh, that's wonderful. And be driving. Oh, just imagine.
Well, I'm not too happy about it.
You going to teach her how to drive?
No. Can't teach a relative how to drive. Goober's going to teach her.
Oh, Goober's going to teach her. Oh, he's such a nice boy. See, here's that interesting article I was telling you about. I'll read it to you. Did you know the dingo dog is indigenous to Australia?
No. What's a dingo dog?
I don't know, but it's indigenous to Australia.
I see, Floyd.
All right, so there's Floyd, and you got to love Floyd. The dingo dog is indigenous to Australia, and I play you that because this is the coincidence. You guys know, most of you guys that listen to this, that I impersonate Floyd the barber. I go around to Mayberry events and I do Floyd. So, hello there, Andy. Yeah, the dingo dog is indigenous to Australia. Anyway, so I go around doing that. Well, I don't know. Now, you guys may not admit this, but have you ever gone on Google and typed in your own name and come back with, the returns about who you are? Well, my name is Alan Newsom, Allan Newsom. Well, I did a search for that, and guess what I found? There is a fellow named, his name is Dr. Alan Newsom, and let me see if I get this right. He is a former Australian Commonwealth Scientific and Research Organization scientist who is a dingo dog specialist. Now, I didn't believe it either when I first saw it. So I went out and on the internet, I found different articles. I found an article it's called Fraser Island Dingoes, where they refer to Dr. Newsom. He says here, it says a former dingo dog specialist, Alan Newsom, who led an investigation undertaken for the dingo more than 20 years ago. Anyway, he goes in. They were doing investigations, evidently studying as to whether or not the dingo dog was its own species. Well, I went in there and I kept looking because I wasn't convinced that this was real. What a coincidence that, I'm doing Floyd. Floyd talks about the dingo dog, and there's a guy with my name that is a dingo dog specialist. So I found there's actually a book called Not Every Dog Has His Day, The Treatment of Dogs in Australia by Jane Duckworth. And she also goes in and talks about, here in the story, it says, Alan Newsom, some research that he had done, the dingo was recognized as a subspecies of the gray wolf. And it goes into the Latin Canis lupus dingo is what it goes into. Anyway, so I kept looking into some more. I could not believe this, and so I went to the Lindy Chamberlain Crichton website, and all these links are going to be on the show notes just because I thought it was interesting. And I did a search there, or didn't do a search there. I searched and found this, and it lists specifically Dr. Alan Newsome, dingo expert, and then it goes into the Australian Commonwealth Scientific Research Organization, or CSIRO. Anyway, so then there's another article. His name was evidently A.E., Alan E. Newsome, because it goes into another story that found at Wildlife Research. Anyway, those links are going to be on the website, but I don't know if this is interesting to you guys, but I just thought it was a strange coincidence that my name's Alan Newsome. Now, this guy does turn out, he's got multiple spellings. He spells it A-L-A-N possibly, but I've seen it both ways on the internet. And anyway, my name's Alan Newsome. I impersonate Floyd the Barber. Floyd the Barber talks about the dingo dog being indigenous to Australia. And a guy named Dr. Alan Newsome is a dingo dog specialist. So anyway, I just thought that was kind of ironic. I guess irony is the correct words. And going on a little further into this same irony of everything, I did a little more research. And I found out there's a animal called the Carolina dog. The Carolina dog is what he's called. Well, he is known as an American dingo. And there's pictures. I'll put these pictures up on the website of the Carolina dog and the dingo dog, because I'm showing, if you're watching the podcast on video, you're seeing a picture of the Carolina dog, and this is a dingo dog, the next picture I'll show. So these will be available if you go to facebook.com/2chairs. We'll put these pictures of the dingo dog in the album there for this episode, number 113. Anyway, it's called a Carolina dog. A Carolina dog is an American dingo. So my theory now is that perhaps the newspaper article, it really ran back in that time frame in North Carolina, talking about the Carolina dog and it being a native of the Carolina southeastern United States, then mentioning the dingo dog, not being confused with it, that's indigenous to Australia. Can't swear that's what it was, but boy, it sure made a lot of sense after I realized, hey, this would be why Floyd was reading about the dingo dog and why it was in a Mayberry newspaper there in North Carolina. Wow, those writers were good. Or Andy actually had a real newspaper from Mount Airy, North Carolina, that actually had a story like that in it, and they spotted it. So anyway, I just wanted to share that with you guys. I hope you enjoyed that little bit. And we got a little bit of feedback from one of our listeners who has been listening to the podcast and listening about Jackie Joseph. So let's hear from Janet Anderson.
Hi, Alan. This is Janet Anderson, member of Who's Been Messing Up the Bulletin Board, and listener to all of your podcasts. And I just wanted to say I just finished listening to part 5 of the Jackie Joseph interview, and I just want to let you know that I really, really enjoyed that. I usually write to you, but I know you like to get people calling, and so I decided to do that this time. I really enjoyed her interview. Before that, I had never seen Little Shop of Horrors, and it wasn't until after that I thought, well, I'm going to do a search on the internet, and I found a place where you could watch it free. And so I watched that for the first time and enjoyed her portrayal of Audrey there. And also, I did a Google search, and I found an interview on the internet that I thought was a really good one with her. If anybody is interested in that, it's at www.bmonster.com/horror15.html. It focuses mostly on her role in Little Shop of Horrors, but it touches on some other things like her background and things like that people might find interesting. But I found her a really interesting lady, and she mentioned that she would be willing for you to interview her again, and I think that would be fabulous. So if you have the opportunity, I'm sure she has a lot more stories to tell. And one of the things that I would like you to ask her, because in my reading about her and in listening to her, she just comes across as a really sharp lady, and yet it seemed like in a lot of her roles she was more or less typecast as a little bit of a bubblehead maybe. And maybe it's because in Little Shop of Horrors she played that very naive kind of character so well that she was given that kind of role thereafter. But she obviously is someone who's really on the ball and has a lot of versatility. So I'm wondering how she would respond to that question. So anyway, I would just encourage that, and thank you. I really enjoyed listening to everything she had to say and wish that I could have been on the cruise to see her in person. So thanks a lot, and I will continue to listen. Bye.
Well, Janet, thank you for calling in and for leaving that voicemail. That's great. And I never really thought about it, but Jackie did tend to play roles where she was, not necessarily portrayed as the brightest person in the world, but that may have been, I think, just her voice was high, real high voice, and I think that may have contributed to that because that was kind of stereotypical, her voice at the time. And I'm sure she could sound different because I've heard her sound many different ways. And she did cartoon voices. If you'll remember during the interview, we talked about that a little bit. So she had a lot of control over her voice. So she was probably able to play roles like that very well by just changing her voice. But I'll ask her that, and we'll try to get her back on here. And if you guys have questions for Jackie, that would be a wonderful idea. You can email them to me, or you can call them in, either one, and we'll collect those so that the next time I get to speak with her, we can ask her these questions that are straight from you, straight from the fans. And I know she would enjoy that. So you can email them to me at floyd@mayberry.com, or you can give me a call at 888-684-8415, and you can leave a message that way. Or you can just leave messages at the twochairsnowaiting.com website. Leave comments on any of the episodes that were about Jackie, and we'll pull those questions off. And or you can leave them over at Facebook, at facebook.com/2chairs. And maybe we can get an answer directly from Jackie, because Jackie does roam around sometimes on Facebook, and maybe she would actually see your question and answer it herself right then in writing. So, well, folks, hey, I hope you really enjoyed the last 5 episodes before tonight of about Jackie, and I hope you enjoyed a little bit your education on the dingo dog being indigenous to Australia and a Carolina dog, something I didn't even know about until I was researching for this podcast itself. So just remember, a dingo dog is indigenous to Australia. Yeah. So, folks, hey, I want to thank you for joining me, and ask you to come back next week, and we'll have some more fun with here in Mayberry. So we'll see you next week on Two Chairs No Waiting, your Mayberry podcast. Bye, folks.